to 14th Street Wise, live at 5 with Rising Sun Company. My name is Akia Spiteri, and I'm the founding artistic director of Rising Sun. And it is so great to be back in person after a year of being apart. And it is especially great to return to this space where our last main stage production of 2019, Friendly's Fire by John Patrick Gray, was produced and performed and was recently published. So it's great to come full circle. We are back again for a 2-week lab with the 14th Street Y Theater. And today I'm going to show you a little bit of what we've been up to. Before we begin, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge the land that the 14th Street Y is on. Today, we are gathered on the unceded ancestral land of the Lenape and many other Indigenous nations. We ask you to take a moment in acknowledging and celebrating the Lenape community, their elders, past and present, as well as their future generations. We also want to take this moment to acknowledge that after there was stolen land, there were stolen people. We honor the generations of stewardship from the enslaved and displaced people that this city was built upon and that we occupy today. Since our activities are shared digitally to the internet, let's also take a moment to consider the legacy of colonization embedded within the technologies, structures, and ways of thinking that we use every day. We are using equipment and high-speed internet not available in many Indigenous communities, and even the technologies that are central to much of the art we make leaves a significant carbon footprint, contributing to changing climates that disproportionately affect Indigenous people worldwide. I invite you to joining us in acknowledging all of this, as well as our shared responsibility to make good of this time, and for each of us to consider our roles in reconciliation, decolonization, and allyship. Thank you. We also want to acknowledge and thank Art New York for sharing some of their language that contributes to this document, and also lift up the work about virtual activities that was written by Adrian Wong of Spiderweb Show in Ontario, Canada. At Rising Sun, we are committed to the principle of ensemble process and performance. Through the collaboration of a resident company of theater artists, our mission is to advance the vitality and diversity of the American theater. As a company, we work very hard to create a safe, nurturing, creative environment for artists that stimulate risk-taking without limits of genre or agenda. Our company members currently are about 35 people and a volunteer staff of 6, and we work as a collective group to foster a nurturing, safe artistic home while creating innovative theatrical experiences in New York City. For this 2-week lab, we selected and collaborated with 5 of our company playwrights and gave them time, space, cast, and a production team to develop their plays. We also want to thank very much the generous support of the 14th Street Y and the theater staff here. And our goals were to support the artists, create a safe environment as we transition back into in-person theater, and explore how live streaming can interact with our performances working forward. Today, I want to take a moment to introduce you to some of our playwrights, have them describe the work we have been up to, and give you a glimpse into our first step back into in-person performance. I also just want to note that during this time of COVID, due to health and safety restrictions, we are keeping our playwrights in 3 separate pods that are separate from each other in their working groups, and everyone has been vaccinated and tested multiple times for COVID-19. First up are 2 of our playwrights, Katie Frazier and Judd Lear Silverman, who wrote 2 of our upcoming pipeline plays entitled Calamity Jane Play and Proud, respectively. These are plays we are committed to producing for a live audience as soon as it is safe, and we have the funding to do so. Katie Frazier is a playwright, dramaturg, and theater administrator whose work has been seen at multiple venues, including City Arts, Greensboro Fringe Festival, and Brooklyn's The Brick. They were a finalist for Stella Adler's Harold Clurman Playwrights in Residence, and a semi-finalist for the in-progress new play reading series at the Unicorn Theater. Judd Lear Silverman is a Brooklyn-based playwright, director, and actor, and he is a grant recipient from the Barilla Keir Foundation for Playwriting, and his work has been seen across the country at the Edinburgh Fringe, and of course, on Zoom. He teaches playwriting, dramatic literature, and English at Pace University here in New York City. Welcome, Katie and Chad. So we have lots of questions, but we're going to start with the basics. If maybe you could each just tell us a little bit about what your stories and plays are about that we're working here with.
Thanks, Jen. So yes, my script is Untitled Calamity Jane play. So as you may have guessed, it is about Calamity Jane, both the historical figure and the mythology that's sort of built up around her. Historically, it's really difficult to know. Very much that's actually true about Calamity Jane, because all the lies she told herself while she was alive. So the play tries to grapple with that lies, the myth after her death, and the reality of who she was.
Thanks, Katie. Jed, tell us a little bit of Proud.
Yes, Proud is based on a true news item from about 4 years ago. 4 peacocks escaped from the Philadelphia Zoo and caused a major traffic jam on the Brooklyn Expressway. It took about 4 days. They kept trying to corral the birds, and somehow or other they couldn't. I've chosen to explore that adventure from the birds' perspective, basically. They were on a mission. Think of the Dirty Dozen as told by peacocks.
Awesome. Thank you both. That's a great segue, because I think one of the things that's really fun and exciting, and also why we paired you together in Pod, are both of your stories in their own ways talk about either a true incident or a real person. And maybe you could tell a little bit about how that led your writing adventures. Has that been freeing or limiting? And what do representing true stories or true people mean to you in your writing and work?
Well, for me, it's very funny. I do a lot of my plays, both short plays and long plays, off of true news stories. But I try to choose something only on the basis of whether or not it tickles me as a subject matter. I don't necessarily know what I'm going to write about. And that's a good thing as far as I can see. Because if I set out to do something about the themes that are in Proud, I don't know if I would have done them as honestly or as openly, or there would have been as much discovery if I'd set out to write those themes. Whereas those themes are on my mind, and you're a bunch of peacocks talking. It's a great opener.
Great, thank you, Jen.
For me, it's a bit of a different experience. It's not normally the way I've operated as a playwright. But what I really loved about the experience of writing a play that's based on historical fact, digging into some very, very old news articles, is the amount of freedom it gave me that I wasn't expecting, right? As a playwright, I tend to be really interested in how you tell the story, more so than like the details of the story itself, for better or worse. And that it gave me that freedom to be like, how do I take all these disparate pieces and communicate them in a way where the method has as much meaning as the content? And it gave me freedom to really focus on that and explore that.
Great, thank you both. And this is sort of a two-part question. As we approach this loud, I know we just started working yesterday, some of the other playwrights sort of started in the space earlier. But what was important about this space, this lab, working with the Y? Maybe you can just talk a little bit about what your goals are and what the process has been so far, and what you hope the process will be next week as well.
Well, for me, I've loved this space very much. I've come here several times. Saw a friend was fired, produced the Rising Sun last year. I'm hoping to one day have maybe even this play possibly performed here. It's wonderful to have this workshop space, because it's one thing to write on paper, you know, peacocks talking, delivering a message. It's another thing trying to physicalize it. And so to have a chance to visualize it, look at how do you adapt human physiognomy to fit verbs, and also the rituals that are involved in play need some exploration, and also how the bird world does or doesn't interact with people. So it's also a role.
Awesome, Katie.
Definitely, yeah. I think it's really interesting, right? Having gone over a year not being in a theater space, to finally come back and to just be reminded of all the things we could discover together in person that as magical as student theater has been at times, the first time we heard actors in space sing roots together, they could have been reading the phone book and I could have been thrilled. It's a whole different experience. And when it comes to my play, it's very complicated. There are multiple stories that are interwoven. There's up to 6 different Calamity Janes on stage at any given time, which made it really hard to begin exploring that play over Zoom. So it wasn't really possible to do that reading over the past year because if people overlap in a Zoom conversation, you don't hear anything, right? So getting to be in this space where Rising Sun has such a great relationship with the Y has just really meant a lot and really given them this opportunity to move forward again.
Great, thank you. So I'm going off script here because we have a couple minutes left with our time together. What is one word that you would use to describe your play?
Whimsical.
Whimsical, all right.
You know, my place is full of cowboys, so I'm currently wondering if root and tootin' is one word or two. It's hyphenated.
I love it. It's totally a word. We were actually, a few of us were at IHOP the other night, and the root and tootin' wasn't on the menu, and I was quite upset. So I appreciate the root and tootin'. It's been a theme word every week. Maybe, is there anything outside of the lab that you're working on that you want to share with folks that are watching? Is there anything else that you're working on that you want to share?
Well, I just had a play done down in Florida at the Staging Festival last weekend.
Awesome.
And they're a good group. And then John Bray, we mentioned earlier, he's the editor of Best Urban Short Plays. And finally, supposed to open this COVID, the 2018-2019 edition. That's his stuff.
That's great. Congratulations.
So we're represented.
We're represented. Love it. Katie, do you have anything going on that you want to share?
I've got some new stuff that's in very early stages, so nothing coming up to talk about. Shortly pre-pandemic, I had some scripts published for the first time, and Smith & Nelson's Women in Play Anthology, so check that out. And yeah, and then there's student theater with Rising Sun last year. So great.
Great. Well, thank you both so much. It's been really, really exciting to see these works develop over the past year and a half that we first did our table reads. And I'm personally really thrilled to see these up on our feet, and I can't wait to see what 2022 might hold for both of these works. So definitely keep your eyes out. Those watching and following along, because these are part of our pipeline plays. And these 2 works are pieces that we are committed to the long haul. So thank you. We're going to have our next playwright pod join us. Katie and Judd, thank you for spending part of your afternoon with us and chatting with us.
Thank you.
Hi, so our next 2 playwrights are Mel Cremona, who is developing her play Captive Program, and Mateo Marino, who is developing his play Within Our Walls. And Mel is a multidisciplinary theater artist originally from Mexico and is based here in New York City. Her plays have been seen across America: Adios Fjord, which is performed off-Broadway at the Theater of the Gibney, and Ice Cream Throw Yo, which was performed at the Hudsonville Theater. And Nell is an active member of Playwrights and Directors Workshop at the Actors Studio and the Dramatists Guild of America. Mateo is an actor and playwright. His play Pitch was recently been published as a part of play anthology We Are Not Neutral. And our playwriting credits include Happily After Tonight, which was performed at TVG Theater, and Bohemian Valentine, which was performed at the New York International Fringe Festival. Welcome, Anel and Mateo. And I have to say, I said this before to you, and I noticed Judd and Katie also, everybody is color coordinated today, which I am living for. So thank you both for spending part of your afternoon. Mateo and Anel, you're both ensemble members and company members. And it's really exciting to have you both develop and choose Rising Sun to support this work. So maybe we'll just start with the same question. If you could be able to tell us a little bit about your play and what's it about.
Yes. So my play, Captive Pilgrim, not for long, because the title is changing at some point by the end of this workshop. It's about women, about the way society perceives the women's psyche, and how the institutions play into this. It's a very theatrical play, to call it that way. A lot of the theater elements are present in the script, so that's what we've been working on this week.
My mic went dead, so we're gonna share.
Right,
Live theater. Right? Also, I really like that we both got 2 pronunciations for our names each. So it's really, just however you want to say our name, which is our lives, I think. My play within our walls is set in an all-girls dormitory, and we see it through the eyes of Madeline, who is the first new transfer student in, and the entire action sort of takes place over a weekend as the girls are trying to plan a field trip, and the school doesn't seem to want them to leave the building, and we go through a lot of mystical and magical adventures.
Great. So I'm gonna ask you the same series of questions. A little bit different. When did you write the play? How did you come up with the concepts? And what is it about this story and right now that is important to tell these stories or develop these stories?
Yep. Okay. I wrote a version of the play a few years ago. I was commissioned by my high school that I went to write their spring play, and I was really honored to do that. And it went up, and it was really cool. And after that went up, I was very excited to actually start digging into it, rewriting it, and find a place for it in New York, make a slightly more adult version. I want to say a lot through it, and I think it's very we're dealing with a lot of timely issues, and even though it is definitely a comedy wrapped in the supernatural, it's an almost entirely female cast. We have an amazing female director, an amazing female stage manager, and I'm really excited to see where it goes.
My play started as an exercise for my playwriting class back when I was in grad school at the Actors Studio Drama School. We had to write one scene that was an adaptation from something else. So I went ahead and did this, and at some point I developed this into a play that includes elements of the Latin American literature, and now I'm adding some stories for Willard, the mental institution upstate, it's near Rochester for those who don't know Willard, but and the concepts that I like to play with, which is theatricality and magic realism, and we somehow ended up here.
I think something for me that's been really interesting about both of these pieces, and again, sort of I don't think it was even planned this way, but there's been thematic elements for both pods, and both of your plays also explore institutions, right? And also how institutions treat women, especially, and that's been really fascinating to see how that's threaded through the work as well. So I just want to highlight that, because that was actually just something that occurred to me here. I was like, oh yeah, Judd and Katie are like real stories, and Anel and Mateo are like exploring institutions and gender identity and how those things interplay. So synergy happens a lot when we're doing this pod work. I would love to hear you both talk what has been helpful during this process? What has the process been like for you? And how is that related to the why and being in this space? Sort of, what are you hoping to accomplish? And maybe a little insight into how you've all been working together as a pod.
Sure. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. The piece and the institutionalization. So actually, during the workshop, I had like a little bit of a breakthrough 2 days ago when I realized what is this about institutions that I wanted to deal with, and it's how they have the final word on how are we going to perceive everyone or everything. The institution says that, then it's true. It doesn't say that, then it's not true. And it's just a binary system that it's not always true, to put it that way. I think there's a shade of gray in the middle of who people are or what it is real and what it isn't, that is not covered by the official versions of what it's said. I don't know if I'm making any sense, but that's what I'm dealing with in my play personally. Also, working by pods has been amazing. Well, Mateo and I are acting in each other's plays. So we're not only there as playwrights, we also get to be on our feet and bring to life the words of the other. And I think it's been such a cool experience. Also, we are working with some great actors, directors, stage manager, and it's been a great week. I'm looking forward to next week.
As Anel said, we both are working on each other's piece, and Anel's a great collaborator. And we realized at the beginning of this pod that we actually hadn't met in person because of Zoom, which was a really bizarre thing to realize because we knew each other pretty well already. It's sort of going off what you said, Akia, the world of the institution, high school is in itself an institution, especially when it's an all-girls boarding school, and I want to play with the levels of class and structure and why those happen and why certain people think that they have to stay and certain people do not belong in their clique or their group, and sort of the loneliness that can exist in both of those worlds. It's interesting to work alongside Anel's piece because they're drastically different tones, but both deal in magical realism and how the world sees women, and it's nice to play off of that.
Thank you. So I'm gonna go off script a little bit. Can you both do the same thing, describe your piece in one word?
I think it's too easy to say magical, so I hope after it's finished, whimsical.
Dreamy.
And she just caught the word. I love it. It was there, and she had to like grab it and bring it back.
It's like a Pokemon.
Is there anything else that you're working on outside of the pod and this process that you want to share real quickly with those that are watching? Any other things that are going on in your world?
Yes, I'm actually, yesterday I launched a fundraiser for it's an immersive reading and development. What does that mean? I am working on an immersive draft for my play Green Mist, and we're going to have our first reading as an immersive play, which is going to be at a bar to have different spaces to play with, and it's going to happen all around the audience, and it's going to be fun. Yes.
And as you mentioned, my play Pitch has been recently published. You can find it on Amazon, both in playwright or in paperback and digital book, with a great theater company called Conchel. We worked on it last year. It's all playwrights of color, and it's a lot of important stories. So go pick it.
Great. Well, Mateo Moreno and Anel Carmona, I'm just tongue-tied today. Words and not enough coffee. But I want to thank you both for sharing your time and your work and being a part of this process with us. It's been really exciting to have you. And I'm going to welcome our next playwright. So thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The time is now. The place, an all-girls school at the top of a hill in the middle of nowhere.
All right. Well, I welcome our final playwright who wrote City of Dark, our Pod C. We are actually performing a hybrid live stream performance of his play next Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. right here on this stage. Michael Higgins is a playwright, director, fight director, actor, and producer. He is a member of the Dramatists Guild and Advanced Actor Combatant for the Society of American Fight Directors. Some of his credits include The Long Round North, which performed off-Broadway at Soho Rep and Fringe NYC. Michael is Black, which received outstanding overall production of a solo show at Planet Connections Theater Festivity, and The Vengeance Room, which is performed at Frigid Festival, just to name a few. Michael is also the winner of Best Playwriting, Best Director, Best Overall Production of the NEPTA Awards for his play As You Wish It, or The Princess Bride, or What You Will, and also serves as the Artistic Director of Cage Theater Company. Welcome, Michael.
Hello.
So we're going to start with the basics. Tell us a little bit about City of Dark. And I think we're having some mic issues. We'll give you a minute to get that going.
Testing.
There we go. We're back.
I learned how to use technology today. So what was your question again?
So just to give us a little bit about City of Dark, what's it about?
Well, it is about 6 survivors in a bomb shelter after a cataclysmic event, and they're living with each other among duress, stress, and survival when something new happens to all of them.
Great. And so I know that you've been working on this play for a little while. It's been through a few iterations. What inspired you? When did you originally start the process? And why this play and why now?
Well, I wrote the play around 2011, actually, so it was long before we ever thought COVID ever existed, other than people in science. And so I just had the idea one day of what happens when we're stuck somewhere. I'm a big playwright about confinement, when characters are stuck in a place where they cannot get out, have no way to get out, and everything seems lost, and how do they find a reason to live after that? So City of Dark began as a simple play about just 6 survivors, and then in 2019, someone took a look at it and went, it was a great play, surprise, and so I continued to work on it more and started to create more reasons why they were stuck where they were. Because I figure if the world's going to end, there's going to be people that are going to be innovative enough to find a way out of that, find their own way to make their own societies and survive. And what happens to the outcasts of those societies? What happens to people that some other people don't like very much, want to put away and hide away? And so my play became more about the survivors surviving when they're not supposed to. When society's told them, we don't want you here, they're finding their own life somewhere else.
So the next question is, we have all been in these Zoom boxes for the past year. I know we've done a few of your pieces over the past 6 months. What is it like now in this hybrid world where we are doing a digital production, but we're now back in a live space on stage? What has that process been like, and how's that been for you?
Well, I'm in a real theater, so I feel ecstatic. There's lights in here, there's sound in here, there are people in here, and I absolutely love every minute of it. I have made myself very busy during this pandemic because I figured, well, if we're going to be on Zoom, we're going to read a play. And I feel like every month I've had some new play or some old play that I want to edit. Just call some friends and go, hey, you want to read a play? And they're like, yes, I do, Michael. And so we just read a play. And now I'm in a real play with a play that I've worked on for a long time and really wanted to hone what's wrong with it and fix the holes that I've missed, and take out the mistakes I've made, and trying to keep making something better and better. And I would never know that until I see it in front of me, in person, people doing the action, feeling the emotions, saying the lines. And Zoom is great and all. I love Zoom. I'm thankful for Zoom because it got me through some very intense moments, like all of us. But now we're in real theater. Now I get to watch today the actors feel the lines that I wrote and then loving them and crying at them and laughing at them. And when you're a playwright, what better emotion can you have? What better moment can you feel when your words actually move actors to tears? Especially great actors who have done it a million times, who've done your work a million times, they're still crying at your work. I love that. I love knowing that somehow I'm still kind of good at this.
And maybe you can talk a little bit about what has it been like just working with Rising Sun and that ensemble, that process being here in a lab environment. Can you talk a little bit about what that process is like and what it's been like for you?
Well, I kind of want to start with other playwrights and other plots because I mean, I'll give you an example. Katie wrote the Calamity Jane play. I love that play from the beginning. And I'm like, okay, they're talented, you know, and then talking to Judd and all the playwriting meetings I've got to meet with him and getting his feedback. I'm like, that playwright is amazing. And then Batavia, who I knew wrote plays, but also acted with him. He's acted in my plays. I've written for him on a award ceremony. I had never read any of his plays, but now I know, like, he's a writer, he's a playwright. It's to read his stuff and see how good he is. And I first met Annelle on Zoom during my Christmas Carol. And she has a play, she's a playwright. Amazing. I can't wait to read it. I can't wait to see it in action. So the answer to your question is, I'm so humbled to be part of a great process like this because most of the plays I've written in the past are by myself, you know, in my room with no one to help me, no clever process, no feedback. I just have an idea, I write it, I put it on paper, and I hope it's okay. I hope it's gonna initiate a reaction. But now I have a group to work with. I have a friendly group of actors and directors and playwrights, tech people who want to actually do my plays and actually put them in front of people. And you want to make money on my plays, and that's a great thing to be able to playwright. It's great to have a process and people that support your work. And it's so important with the actual form, especially coming out of a pandemic when people are still a little lost right now. They still have nowhere to go. They still have nowhere to let the creative piece out of them. And luckily, I have that. I know the playwrights can do this stuff.
Thank you for that. You're making little tears. It's been an emotional process coming back into space together. And like you said, for those at home, we had our ensemble audition, which we were at in February of 2020. And we're like, we're gonna start all of these amazing things, and we have this new family of artists coming in, and then we never got to actually be in a space again after that day of callback. And we were all working together, creating these relationships in Zoom. So yeah, it's been emotional in a really good way of just regathering and having this opportunity. So thank you for that. Same question. One word answer. How would you describe City of Dark in one word?
Life.
Life. All right. And is there anything else you want to share that you're working on outside of the lab that you want to lift up?
Well, I've been working on a play about the NFL draft. I wrote a play about 5 college players who are at the NFL draft, ready to be drafted by an NFL team, and some of them have worked together, some of them have not, and so some have their parents there, some have no one there, and it's just their experiences before they're going to move on into adulthood and a new career. And then in September, for the Broadway Bound Theater Festival, I'm going to have my new play, Sung the USA, which will get a lot of flack, and a lot of feedback, and a lot of criticism, but I'm going to be brave and put it on because it's about the racial issues of Black voices being not only covered up, but also gaslit to believe they've had it so good over 400 years.
Thank you for that, Michael. And thank you again for being part of this process. We're about out of time, so we're gonna do our last little video showing some of the work that your pod has been doing. But thank you again, Michael. And don't forget to tune in next Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. for Michael Hagan's City of Dark. Tickets are pay what you can. They are starting at $5, and they can be found at risingsunnyc.com. Thanks, Michael.
Thank you.
you all so much for joining us with this Live at 5 glimpse into Rising Sun Performance Company's work. I can't say enough how thrilled we are to be back in person again. Even though we're not fully there, this is a huge step forward, and we cannot wait to share the work of some of our artists again next Friday and Saturday at 7 p.m. That is the 28th and 29th of May. That's 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and RisingSunNYC.com. You can purchase tickets. I also want to lift up and give an immense amount of gratitude to Chrissy and the entire staff of really staff of one, which is Chrissy and the team here at the Y and the theater, who are doing immense work to support us as artists and support visual art and theater art here in New York and keeping it going. So thank you very much to the theater at the 14th Street Y and especially Chrissy. So please do support them, follow them online, check out their website and learn more about the great work they're doing here. I also want to take a moment that as a theater company, as an indie theater company, we rely 100% on ticket sales and donations to support our artist work. If you are able to, please consider donating to us at Rising Sun so we can continue to support artists and playwrights that you met today. We hope and plan to continue creating safe space for our artists and independent theater. To donate, you can also make a tax-deductible donation at Rising Sun NYC. You can also support us on Patreon and get more background behind the scenes look like you have today. And most of all, I want to thank again everyone who is behind the camera and backstage to make this possible. And I also want to shout out to our health and safety team, which is led by Mateo, who is here keeping us all safe and healthy. So thank you very much. RisingSunNYC.com. Thanks for spending part of your day with us.